No solution can be found on the battlefield. This is not an era of war. This important message vis-a-vis the Russia-Ukraine conflict resonated in Warsaw today, just weeks after Prime Minister Narendra Modi said this to Russian President Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin in Moscow. Prime Minister Modi is on a two-day historic visit to Poland, the first visit to the European country by an Indian Prime Minister in 45 years. During his talks with the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk in capital Warsaw, Prime Minister Modi today said, "The conflicts in Ukraine and West Asia are of deep concern to all of us. India firmly believes that no solution to any problem can be found on the battlefield." Both Prime Ministers called for an end to the ongoing wars. Earlier, Mr. Modi held talks with Tusk at the Chancellery in Warsaw following a ceremonial welcome. At the joint press briefing following the talks, the two leaders announced the upgradation of the India-Poland relationship to a strategic partnership. Calling for more trade and investments, Mr. Modi urged Poland to be part of the Make in India initiative to manufacture goods in India to export to the world. Tusk appreciated Prime Minister Modi's stance on the Ukraine conflict and said India has an important role to play in defusing the crisis. Prime Minister Modi reiterated that India remains committed to playing a role in the restoration of peace. Mr. Modi said, "In any crisis, the loss of innocent lives is the biggest challenge for humanity. We support dialogue and diplomacy for the restoration of peace and stability at the earliest. For such purposes, India is willing to support all possible efforts along with friendly nations." On his part, Donald Tusk said Prime Minister Modi was committed to the immediate resolution of the conflict in Ukraine. The Polish Prime Minister said Prime Minister Modi has confirmed that he is committed to the peaceful, just and immediate stoppage of war in Ukraine. "We believe India can play an important and positive role, and this declaration is very important." Tusk also wished Prime Minister Modi well for his visit to Ukraine, saying, "Mr. Prime Minister, you will undertake a 10-hour journey to Ukraine. I'm confident it will be historic." Prime Minister Modi's visit to Ukraine will be the first visit to the war-torn country by an Indian Prime Minister since diplomatic ties were established between the two countries 30 years ago. Of course, the visit assumes great significance, coming as it does in the middle of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. This is a critical point in the war as both Ukraine and Russia are cutting deeper into each other's territories. Remember, it was in 2022, months after the war erupted, when Prime Minister Modi had first told President Putin, "This is not an era of war." Words that then resonated globally and were repeated today in Warsaw. Addressing the Indian diaspora in the Polish capital, Prime Minister Modi also said that for decades India had a policy of maintaining distance from all countries. However, the policy of today's India is to remain close to all countries. He went on to say, "Empathy is one of the identities of Indians. Whenever any trouble mounts in any country, India is the first country to extend help. When COVID came, India said humanity first. India helps citizens of other countries. India believes in Buddha's tradition, therefore believes in peace, not war. India is an advocate of peace in this region, and it is clear that this is not a time for war. We need to be together to fight challenges." India focuses on diplomacy and dialogue. Mr. Modi also lauded the Indian community for helping Indian students who were stuck in Ukraine when the war erupted in 2022. He also thanked the Polish government for opening doors for Indian students and removing visa restrictions at the time. All eyes will now be on Prime Minister Modi's day-long visit to the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, on Friday. Mr. Modi, who is visiting Ukraine at the invitation of President Volodymyr Zelensky, has said he will share with the Ukrainian leader his perspective on a peaceful resolution of the ongoing conflict. As we said, Prime Minister Modi is visiting Ukraine nearly 6 weeks after his high-profile visit to Russia, which triggered criticism from the United States, some of its Western allies, as well as Ukrainian President Zelensky himself. In fact, in a very strongly worded statement, Zelensky had said then, "It's a huge disappointment and a devastating blow to peace efforts to see the leader of the world's largest democracy hug the world's most bloody criminal in Moscow on such a day." Prime Minister Modi's visit happened to coincide with the Russian strike on Ukraine's largest children's hospital that left many dead. During his talks with Putin at the Kremlin the next day, Prime Minister Modi told the Russian president, "Whether it's a war, conflict, or a terror attack, any person who believes in humanity is pained when there is a loss of lives. And when innocent children are killed, the heart bleeds, and that pain is terrifying." So what happens when Prime Minister Modi meets with the Ukrainian president in Kiev? Can India play a mediator and peace broker between the two warring nations?